So welcome everybody. Nice to meet you, Stephen. First time on the show, so you're welcome. And I'm actually speaking from Holborn Towers head office, which I've not done before, so which is different. And as you know, every week we have a new launch. We bring in the developer and our property partner. We've been up lately to Edinburgh, we've been down to Brighton, we've been across the Cotswolds and Somerset, obviously London, and we're back up to Manchester, which is a brand in itself. That's the way I like to look at Manchester. It's a brand in itself. It really is. So anyway, how lovely to have a developer on. We haven't had many developers on, so I'm expecting questions to come in asking about your role, what you look for, not just about the development, which should be great. So Stephen, welcome, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So as Chris said, we're here today to have a look at our new project, Victoria Riverside. So Victoria Riverside in itself is one of our first projects in Manchester. As a developer, as a bit of an introduction to FEC, we've been operational for around 55 years now. We were started in Hong Kong back in the 70s. And we now operate out of 10 main countries, namely Australia, mainland China, Hong Kong, Singapore, and then we have operations in both London and Manchester. So the Manchester operation, we opened in around 2016, so it's relatively in its infancy, but we've already completed 502 units in Manchester, and so we've done four buildings so far in Manchester. So we've got New Cross Central, which is the one here. So this is slightly different to what we'd ordinarily produce in that it's only a small scheme of 80 units. Very much an industrial look and feel, you know, exposed concrete, exposed soffits. So really, really nice project to be involved in. We also have Meadowside. So Meadowside comprises of, will eventually be 4 buildings. So the ones you can see here, the gate and the style. 2 of the glass fronted towers, which is a bit more what you'd come to expect from what we look to build. We're very much in the kind of the upper end of the bracket when you come to specification, offerings of amenity, all that kind of thing. But we're very, very fortunate in that we're positioned around Angel Meadows Park with that scheme. So a really nice bit of green space that the residents have access to.
Is that mostly what you do, you know, straight out of the ground? You do conversions as well, or are you all brand new?
Mostly straight out of the ground, Chris. We had a development that we've done in Crouch End, actually, in London, called Hornsey Town Hall, which was the conversion of a 1920s Art Deco kind of town hall. It's a really interesting project. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances that come with converting opposed to new builds. Ordinarily, yes, we are just coming straight out of the ground with new build schemes.
Well, it looks nice. I mean, they go down well in the Middle East. A nice glass building go down very, very well. Although there's a lot to be said for the conversions, you know, in Birmingham and Manchester and places like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Manchester lends itself to it quite well. We're fortunate where we've got quite a lot of industrial history in Manchester. So there are a lot of buildings, particularly over towards the south of the city. And there are a lot of old mills and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of very nice conversions. But I think as the city grows and expands, naturally the kind of inner city mills fall by the wayside. There's not as many of them to obviously develop. So yeah, as I say, Meadowside here, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, that's the residence lounge that we've offered in there. So typically we'll always offer a really high level of amenity space that's in there. And I think, you know, in what is a post-COVID environment, residents expect it a lot more. You know, buyers expect it, tenants expect it. So each time we're looking at developing, the offering of amenity is growing and growing and growing. You know, some of the plans that we've got in our later phases is something that five years ago you would have think you're crazy to offer, but it just becomes the new norm, very much so. So like I say, Meadowside was completed in the summer last year. So that was, there's 286 units in that one. There's another building just on the other side of the park from where you are there, which is 136 units. And then there's a later phase that we'll look to develop, which is a 45-story tower, but TBC on when we'll be launching that one. So on to, I suppose, the meat of the presentation is ultimately Victoria North. So Victoria North, as you can see from the map here, is a regeneration of a part of Manchester that's previously been very unused, mostly brownfield land. There's been a a little bit of private of land assembly required in getting the project to where it is now. But between us and the City Council, who are our joint venture partners for this, we were selected and went through a vigorous tender process to get us to this point. And were selected to embark on what is the Victoria North Master Plan. So some key facts on that: it's going to be 15,000 new homes. FEC, us as a developer, we're investing over £1 billion into the master plan. I should note as well, the total GDV of the whole 15,000 units, it's going to be around 4 billion. We've secured £52 million from the central government from the Housing and Infrastructure Fund to develop what is the City River Park that I'll touch on in a moment. We'll be developing new schools, healthcare facilities, transport links. We've got a new Metrolink stop that's going in there, and it's around 400 acres in total. So it's the largest regeneration project that Manchester has ever seen, and it's the largest that's currently underway in the UK as well. So as you can see from that map, it adds about 30% onto the existing city centre.
So we're looking at the pink bit, or orange, pink.
Yeah,
and so therefore that whole area is going to be a regeneration area, and that will then sort of tag on to be called Manchester City Centre, if you like.
Exactly that. It was planned new community around 40,000 people, Chris. So it's essentially it's going to be its own self-sustainable town or suburb of the city centre. You know, you look at other areas like Ancoats, Spinningfields. Victoria North is going to be a new district within the city centre. It's developed and funded by ourselves in the City Council, so we've got some excellent partners in the City Council that fully support and are obviously our partners in doing this. And obviously having investment from central government is a big win as well. You know, we've got some really big investors that sit alongside us with this.
And Stephen, for people on the show, Victoria North, how long is that going to take? Because obviously we're going to be talking about, Crown View. How long is the whole project going to take? Will they be in the middle of a building site?
So the whole project is planned to be for the next 10 to 15 years. Now, you've got to remember that's a huge amount of work that goes into that. You know, it's 15,000 units. If you break that down into buildings, you know, you're looking at 100 different blocks. There's a massive amount of work that goes into that. What we have done is subdivided it into 7 different neighbourhoods. So we'll always make sure that we're not just pepper potting schemes around it. There's a very strategic way that we'll placemake as we move through the master plan to ensure that we're not doing exactly what you say is completing schemes in the middle of a master plan. What we have done as well as part of this is been very careful about the positioning of the new park that we're creating. So we're creating a 113 acre park that's going to run through the heart of the master plan. And we've got the River Irk, which is one of three main rivers that run through Manchester, that runs straight through our site. So the City River Park it threads kind of through the master plan. All 7 neighbourhoods will be connected by the park. It's going to be the largest green space in central Manchester. So I mean, comparatively speaking, if you look at other massive green spaces, across the world and other key cities, I mean, Manchester's got a long way to go, but you've got, Hyde Park, central London, you've got Central Park, all these parks, the real estate that sits around it is always the most prime, the most sought after, for buyers, for tenants. So I think in creating the City River Park, we give ourselves a massive USP that we can bring to the market about this green space. And in the post-COVID environment that I referenced previously, that's such a big want of tenants as well.
The question's just come in. It's just come in from Kieran. What is there at the moment in that space? If you know, are they knocking a lot of old buildings down, or is it green space or brown?
So a lot of it's brownfield land at the moment. So okay. There's some existing green space in there. So St. Catherine's Wood that you can see referenced there, that is an existing park that will be then kind of taken under our ownership and our care and attention, privately managing it and making sure that it's well looked after. And obviously, as we build through this, I'll give some explanation as to kind of where we are. But you can see where I've noted Victoria Riverside just here at the bottom of the image. The entrance to the park is probably 10 metres away from the concierge entrance to Crown View, which is fantastic. Selling point for the scheme is having the entrance to the park right next to the scheme itself. So we've had a lot of comments on that, and I think Victoria Riverside is really well positioned. It's the entrance essentially into Victoria North. So as you come through from the city centre and there's a railway bridge that you come through, it opens out into this what's called Gateway Square, and Crown View is positioned right in the place where you can enter into the park and go into the scheme as well.
Not taking anything away from your presentation, but questions just come in. So with Victoria Riverside, and as you said, right next to the park in the area, how long would it be for someone to commute, a tenant to commute into central Manchester, say they're going to work for the BBC or any of the big corporations that have now repositioned there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this probably leads quite nicely into the image that I'm showing you now. So we're well positioned in that we are about a 5-minute walk from Manchester Victoria train station, which is one of two main train stations in Manchester. We're probably 7 or 8 minutes to the Arndale Centre, which is the largest indoor UK shopping centre, 240 retailers there. You've also got Exchange Square, where you've got another Metrolink stop. You've got Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, all that kind of thing. So really well positioned to enjoy everything the city has. And I think Victoria Riverside is quite unique in its positioning with Victoria North, because on one side of it, you're always going to be the closest to the city centre. Regardless of what gets built out of Victoria North, that in itself is an excellent location. So you've got the immediate rental return of that. But then on the flip side, you've got, £1 billion worth of investment that's going on beyond you as well from the city centre, which is only gonna, I suppose, bolster the asset that you've got already. So it's really well positioned and quite exciting to get inside a first phase of a launch. If you look at other previous massive regenerations, and I think we've all been there where we've gone, oh, I wish I invested in the first phase. You look at the likes of Brent Cross, you look at Battersea Power Station, other massive regenerations. There's a lot of people have done very well out of first phases in there. So again, going back to location, as you can see, you're 5 or 10 minutes away from Victoria. You've got Piccadilly there. Importantly, Old Trafford, which I know is obviously where everyone will want to go when they're in Manchester. And then you've got all the central, the shopping districts. You've got the Ancoats Northern Quarter, which is kind of like a really trendy, cool place, bars, shops, restaurants, all that kind of thing as well. So moving on to Victoria Riverside. So this is Victoria Riverside in the CGI you can see here. So it consists of 3 towers. You've got Parkview, City View, and Crown View. The one we're talking about today is Crown View, which is the tallest one on the right hand side. As you can see from the images here, what we really looked to design in Victoria Riverside was something that's quite unique. When we've sold developments in the past, and as I'm sure you've all experienced, is the corner apartments always sold the best. So we went to Hawkins Brown, our architect, and done a lot of work for us in the past. We wanted to create this design that every single apartment has this dual aspect. So once you're seeing the floor plate, every single apartment has this massive picture frame window, which is really, really impressive. The facade's just going on about 200 meters to my right hand side here. You can see it coming up, but we've all got these massive picture frame windows, which are about 2 meters wide and about 2.5 tall. So a huge window to capture the views. And I think, the way Victoria Riverside is positioned, in Crown View in particular, there's some fantastic views on offer straight back into the city. So some key facts on Crown View: 275 units in total, got 36 floors, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. And there really is the positioned as the premium tower within Victoria Riverside. It's got the most amenity, which I'll touch upon shortly. It's the tallest, it's closest to the city, etc. So we're positioned that really as the premium tower of the scheme.
Are all 3 going to be built simultaneously, or is the first tower, then second tower, then third tower?
Yeah, they're all being built simultaneously, but as you can see from this here, Parkview and City View, that's the first phase of completion. So that first phase is due Q1 25, with Crown View following in end of Q2, start of Q3 2025. So Crown View is the last one to complete. So on completion there, you'll have everything will be finished. You've also got the park, which is important to note. The first phase of the park is due for completion next year. So that'll all be activated. You'll have all the redevelopments of the park will be complete by the time that Crown View completes as well, which is important.
Quick question that's come in: is there any car parking?
There is car parking available. Obviously, we are limited in terms of the spaces. So I think at the moment we've only got them available for the 3 bedroom apartments, but we do have it available for 3 beds, and it's £25,000 per space. Okay.
But obviously, like London, like Manchester, like Birmingham, they're discouraging people from taking their cars into the town anyway, because the public transport is good. So you don't see that as a restriction.
Not at all.
Although I imagine there's a car park nearby anyway that people can use, visitors, guests.
Yeah, there's loads, and I think where we're positioned, there's a couple of really good car parks where people can use as part of later phases. We'll be looking at things like transport hubs, car share schemes, that kind of thing. But given we're 5 or 10 minutes away from Victoria train station, where you can access pretty much anywhere in the country from, and then you're up to Piccadilly in 10 to 15 minutes, where you can be in London in 2 hours. So. And obviously with the plans for HS2 as well, that'll only shorten that. So I think transport in Manchester is fantastic. And unlike a lot of cities, you can access everything within about 15-minute walk. In say London, for example, 15 minutes doesn't get you very far. But with Manchester, you can go from the business district in Spinningfields right over to the trendy Northern Quarter in 20 minutes.
The good news, of course, is that it hardly ever rains in Manchester, so walking from here to there isn't really a problem. I see that Greg has joined us. Welcome, Greg. How are you? Well, he was.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Apologies for my lateness. We had power cuts, which is typical for South Africa. So finally got on. So thanks. Apologies.
Not at all. Good to see you on there. Sorry, Stephen, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. A worthy introduction, getting Greg into the room. Brilliant. Okay, so this is a typical floor plate here for Crown View. As you can see there, when I'm talking about the picture frame windows, we've got this kind of angled fluted design, which is really quite unique and something that no one else is offering in Manchester at the moment. In that, every single apartment is dual aspect, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 beds. They've all got this mega picture frame window. And what it does as well is it really kind of maximizes the available views there as well. If you're facing into the city, facing over the park, over the river, there's some really good views on offer. And I like to say that the well-designed units as well, in the good sizes, the 2 beds lend themselves perfectly to sharers. You've got a bedroom on each side with obviously the feature living room that's in there as well.
Actually, just have a look then. Just go back to that. So let's just say that TA002. So can you work your cursor on it? So you've got the double aspect coming out at that angle, and then the other one. Yeah. So that's one. Yeah, I got it. And the other one's there. Okay. And there. Okay, I've got you.
Yeah. So that's the 3-bed unit. That one. So but these corner units are really good. So these are all 2 beds that are positioned on the corner. So to give you some idea, so the kind of this side, the left-hand side of the image is city facing. The top side is over towards the park. The right-hand side is facing into the master plan, and at the bottom you're facing kind of East Manchester over towards the Etihad, and everything that's going on up there with their redevelopment as well. But what you get?
Can you see the Etihad from there?
Unfortunately, so Chris. Yeah. So I wouldn't be.
Your emotion, I'd support it.
Yeah. Did you get that?
I did get that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be buying on that side of the development, Chris.
But presumably just the higher floors, you get a good aspect of the Etihad Stadium and see Mason City.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair, on that side, it's
highly paid.
Because you get really good views. I think the beauty as well is because of the way that the windows are angled here as well, albeit you are on the back side of the building looking over the Etihad, your picture frame windows are facing towards the city centre as well. So as much as you are facing kind of the East Manchester side, you do have this angle that faces down over the city centre skyline as well. So again, that's the beauty of the way the windows are positioned in the scheme.
Thanks, Stephen.
No probs. Moving on to amenity. So we've probably gone above and beyond anything we've ever done before, really, in the city centre, and perhaps even in the UK in terms of the amenity offering. So Crown View, in isolation, has 4,500 square foot of amenity. The other towers have all their own amenity. So Crown View amenity is only for theirs. So 4,500 square foot available. So this is the concierge lobby. So we're offering a 24-hour concierge, things like coffee machines, all that will be positioned in there. That's another angle of it there. We've got a residence lounge, which consists of private meeting rooms, booths, obviously a co-working space, all Wi-Fi enabled. Everything that you could want in there. Got a residence bar, importantly, so this can be hired privately. If anyone's got birthdays, anything like that, we can bring in private chefs, cocktail making, all that kind of thing. That's going to be accessible via the concierge, and we'll look to do various different apps, residents and stuff like that as well.
Can I ask a question that probably is on everybody's lips is watches? You've got so many amenities. You've got the bar, you've got everything, the concierge, 24 hours. How does that impinge on the service fees?
Because we've got economies of scale, Chris, it doesn't too badly at all. So inclusive of building insurance, our service charge is projected at £3.48 a square foot. Because we've done it very cleverly in terms of how we operate the building and, spent a lot of time in making it right. We've got someone in-house that works on our service charges to make sure that they're as efficient as possible. So yeah, I mean, £3.48, and if you look at the wider context of schemes, is really quite good.
Okay, just answer that. Keep the questions coming in at the bottom of the screen. Sorry, Stephen, on we go. Away from the bar.
Problem.
I don't want to see that bar anymore.
Making you thirsty, Chris. So that's
for me.
Yeah. So this is the gym and fitness suite that we've got there as well. So really nice space. And like I say, it's a huge space as well. I don't think it quite does it context there. But yeah, a really big gym that's going in there as well. What we do have, in addition to obviously the park, which is public access, is we do have private podium gardens. So on the left-hand side there is the private gardens for Crown View. And on the right-hand side is where the two towers meet on the other podium with City View and Park View. But residents of Crown View have full access to that. So the way we've done it with, like I said before, Crown View being positioned as the premium tower, is they have kind of an access all areas. So Crown View can use the amenity for the whole scheme, the whole of Victoria Riverside, whereas Park View and City View can't access the Crown View amenity, which again kind of highlights it as the premium tower.
It's great having a developer on, and we don't get the opportunity that often. I'm getting another question's come up. What happens if there's a lot going on in Manchester? There's a lot of building going on. What would be your, because obviously about supply and demand, and our clients are looking to buy, to invest, to let it out, and obviously make some money on the property. What would you say to someone who said, there's a lot going on in Manchester, especially you, the developer, you would be doing something that you weren't going to be fully confident in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a question that we get a lot, and ultimately, property investment comes down to a simple case of supply and demand. And the fact of the matter is, we're incredibly short of supply in Manchester. The rental market at the moment is flying, and it shows no signs of stopping. I mean, all you have to do is, from the student market, we get around 100,000 students a year, and we have a retention rate of around 55%. So that alone is increasing population by 55,000. Admittedly, they're not all staying in Manchester, the city centre of Manchester. There will be some that will go to the suburbs, but that alone fills our 15,000 units 3-4 times over. And that's only in 1 year. You look at all the businesses, your KPMGs, your big banks that are coming. Booking.com have just taken an office in Manchester. There's some huge banking and otherwise businesses moving into Manchester. And I think because of the level of affordability, where people have historically been based in London and needed to go into the office, people are moving to Manchester and perhaps go to London once or twice a week to pop into the office because of the quality of life, the affordable nature of Manchester, everything that's going on. I mean, all you have to do is look at the restaurant scene in Manchester. We've got a Sexy Fish opening, who only have restaurants in Mayfair and Miami. We've got Lucky Cat, Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, the Ivy's opened. We're getting a Soho House. There's some massive brands that are opening in Manchester. And I think that's only driving the city one way, Chris.
Thanks. Yeah, that answered the question. Thank you.
No props. So again, Podium Gardens. And then just a little bit of snippet in kind of future phases. So these are indicative CGIs of what kind of thing we're going to be creating later. This one gives a really nice feel for the river and opening up to the park and various bits that we'll be doing as you come through this. You can see Victoria Riverside in the background there. With actually, these are our buildings as well. These ones, that's the Meadowside scheme. But you can see how the river's going to look and what our future plans are for the whole Victoria North area.
Yeah, it looks really smart.
Yeah, we're excited. We've just gone in for planning permission on the next chunk of units, which is 4,800 units.
I've just got a message in. Can you start talking about pricing, please? Somebody just said.
Well, absolutely, Greg. It's probably over to you at that point, and it leads nicely onto this one.
Thanks, Stephen. Sorry, Chris, I missed the question. What was the question there?
Well, it's on the screen. Somebody asked, "What about pricing?" So the screen came up, and here you are.
There you go. I knew the question was coming, you see. Yeah, look, price point, lowest one bed on there, 289 at the moment. That's the only one bed available that we have, and the rest are obviously two beds, and we have some three beds. So that's a snippet of the actual stock list. So if anybody wants the full stock list, obviously they just need to let me know, and I can ping that through to them. But obviously, lots of opportunity and lots of choice. And as you probably covered before I joined the call, one of the big benefits and one of the reasons we chose this development and to work with FEC was that payment structure, which makes it very, very attractive for investors right now, where you can exchange on 10%, 10% 12 months later. And then should you look at maybe a 70% loan to value mortgage, another 10% on completion. So it's a really nice price point for that kind of payment plan.
Absolutely right, and it's unique as far as we're concerned. And just to run through that, £2,000 is to reserve a property with Greg Holborn, and you get that back on exchange contracts. That's right, isn't it? It's just a holding fee, and then 36 spread over the rest of the time in a mortgage. Let's just talk about mortgages whilst we're on. We do every week, and I always like to say, the first thing you do, whether you're a wealth manager or a client that's on the show at the moment, get in touch with us. Let's talk about the mortgage. Let's get it dipped. We've got a great mortgage broker that can actually go through all the details and see what your circumstances are, where in the world you are. You could be in South Africa, you could be in the Far East, you could be in Dubai, and look at it and then getting out. Obviously, we're not going to guarantee rates, but it's a great peace of mind to know that you're going to qualify for a mortgage, all things being equal. So that's my public health warning. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah,
is that good?
Yeah, look, no. I think you're absolutely spot on. There's obviously people probably tuned into this right now that are sat in locations thinking this looks amazing, but can I even get a mortgage? The amount of people I speak to in South Africa are not even aware they can get a mortgage because they've never lived in the UK. They don't have bank accounts in the UK. And so actually just to go through the process to validate the fact you can get a mortgage is obviously important. What the rates are going to be in 2025 when this thing comes to complete, it's anyone's guess at the moment. I think the general consensus is they're going to be lower than they are today, but how much lower, who knows? So again, just the validation that you can get a mortgage, I think, is important. But as you said, from a payment plan perspective, and you also touched on before, there are a number of projects currently going on across Manchester. We get them on our desk every single day, and most of the developers are looking at a 20, 25, 30% deposit to exchange, which makes it quite toppy right now. So the fact that you can exchange on 10% and spread the payments out like this, it's super unique. And again, given the price point.
Sorry, Greg. One thing I'd jump in and mention there as well, which is probably the right time to say, is that 20% is fully protected as well. So we have 10% protection from NHBC, who are our guarantee provider, and then the stage payment of 10% is also held as stakeholder with our solicitor. So we're not using any of them funds for build, so it's all fully protected.
Thank you, Stephen. That's really good. Questions come in from Kieran. Thanks, Kieran. Always on the show. A presumably completion date July 2025.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. Interest rates at the moment. Another question come in. Interest rates at the moment. Look, I'd be silly and not responsible if I said 6.5, but everybody's different, whether it be Africa, as I mentioned, other parts of the world, if you're employed, self-employed. But Greg and Stephen, would you agree with me with somewhere between 6 and 7 at the moment, depending on status?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. That's where we're at right now. Question mark when this completes where we're going to be, but yeah, right now it's between 6 and 7. Which I think that, again, as long as you're buying in the right area, getting the right yield, you can still be cash flow neutral, cash flow positive.
Yeah, with an interest-only mortgage, absolutely right, and that's what most of our clients are looking to do. And there'll be cash flows on each and every one of these. Greg, whilst you're on, we obviously met earlier on. We talked about Sorry, Stephen. I love Manchester. I think it's fantastic. Sorry, but I'm going to change the subject. So we talked about Slough earlier on. That's on our website now. That is completed and tenanted, so we like that. You've got Greenwich down there in London that you can have a look. Everything's on the website. What else have you got coming up, Greg? I've got messages coming from Paul Preston. So he's actually not on our call. So thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Greg, what have you got what's coming up?
Yeah, look, we've tried to obviously position the opportunities for clients from the sort of lower end to the higher end, being the Greenwich project that you just mentioned, coming in around about the £1 million mark. So, you know, we've got a lot of cash buyers at the moment that either can't get mortgages or don't want mortgages. So we have a project about 48 minutes away from London, price point between 135 grand to 215. You mentioned obviously Slough, again, completed development, fully tenanted, sort of 250 to 300. Our off-plan hero project, as we're on the call right now with Stephen and FEC. We do have another couple of off-plan projects in the pipe, mainly in Devon. We've got projects in Gainsborough. We've actually got something coming up in Cyprus as well. But in terms of opportunity today, certainly from an off-plan perspective, there's nothing I've seen really, not even through us or on the market, that beats Victoria North, Victoria Riverside in Crown View.
I think it looks like a great project. As I said right at the beginning, before you joined us, I always think that Manchester, Birmingham, London are almost brands themselves, aren't they? They really, you know, we love York, we love Brighton, we love other places that we've got, Edinburgh, for example. But you've got to say, Birmingham, Manchester, and London are such great investment stories.
100%. I mean, Chris, if you look at, like, you know, just going back a number of years, you know, if you'd have been purchasing in Deansgate, you know, just, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, you know, you're probably getting a 2-bed there for about 350. They're valued now at 450 easily. So what you've got with this Crown View project is you're buying future value. So to be able to buy a 2-bed there right now for, you know, 350 to 400, you know, fast forward 2 years, you're just buying future value right now. And I think that's the key. You're buying future value at only 10% deposit. And so it just makes it so attractive. And you probably covered the slide in the before I joined. But again, apart from the payment structure, the reason we loved this project and the reason we love the Victoria North story is that FEC were involved in it. So whenever we try and work with an off-plan development, you know, the fact that the developer's listed is a massive tick in the box. Second to that, you know, joint venture with the Manchester City Council, again, another layer of, you know, security on top of that. And then thirdly, the fact that the deposits are fully insured is the sort of final, you know, sort of key in the lock. So yeah, all boxes tick from our side. And yeah, we look forward to working with these guys, not only on this project, but on future projects as well.